Well, all of a sudden, everything is changing for the Eagles, and it's happening at the perfect time, as they finally seem to have found a true identity on offense, while on defense, the pass rush is coming alive at the right time. Not to mention that their path to clinching the NFC East just got easier with some game-changing news out of Washington. Meanwhile, hear how the Eagles' new-look offense is benefiting Jalen Hurts, how Brandon Graham's vintage performance was better than we thought, and what are the latest injury updates on Jalen Hurts and Lane Johnson? Well, let's talk about all that and more starting right now. Alright guys, so for now, I don't want to jinx anything, but it definitely seems like we are not living a repeat of 2023. As the Eagles' statement win over the Raiders on Sunday, I think was a clear sign that this team is far different from that group 2 years ago because, as I pointed out in my last video, the Eagles in 2023 were simply incapable of putting together a response like the one that we just saw on Sunday. As if you rewind back 2 years ago, the Eagles followed their 3-game losing streak then with a win, but a very ugly one over a bad Giants team, and then followed that up with horrible losses to the lowly Cardinals and that same Giants squad. And during that collapse, it was clear that 1, that offense had absolutely no identity and no answers to the struggles that they'd been having all season, and 2, that defense was absolutely horrible, they were undisciplined, they were poorly coached, and they had no hope of stopping any NFL caliber offense. So I think you can see why this year is pretty different from that. As the 2025 Eagles followed up their 3-game losing streak with a dominant victory on both sides of the ball, as the defense had one of the best performances that we've ever seen, while the offense finally looks like they're starting to get on track, and they're actually finally finding some sort of identity on that side of the ball. Now, not saying that all those issues are suddenly fixed, because they're definitely not, but what I am saying is that this team is very much headed in the right direction right now, and I definitely, at least currently, am not expecting a 2023 type of collapse from them. So drop a like down below for that. Let's see if we can get to at least 500 likes today. It really would help me out a ton. And again, like I said, I think one of the most encouraging aspects of that win over the Raiders is that the Eagles finally seem to be finding some sort of offensive identity. And this kind of started back in the Chargers game when it was reported that Nick Sirianni had stepped in and became more heavily involved with the Eagles offense that week. And, not saying that he's an offensive genius or that Sirianni's fixed all the problems, but since then, we've seen the Eagles make some much-needed changes that have really helped. And in this game against the Raiders, they really did build on a lot of those things. With the main change being to switch to a much more under-center heavy offense where they lean more on the run game and then run play action off of that. I mean, the Eagles ran 30 plays from under center on Sunday, which is the most that they've had all season, and that, combined with some other changes, have really started to turn things around. Because in terms of the passing game, the Eagles finally started to move away from spamming hitch routes relentlessly, as they ran the least amount of those that they have all season, and instead, they focused more on stretching the defense vertically and horizontally, as the route concepts and play designs were much, much better than we've seen, and that resulted in multiple big gains and just more variety from the passing game than we've seen for much of this season. But again, it all starts with the run game. As with that finally getting going, it helped the Eagles offense to stay ahead of the sticks for once, which has been a big problem all year, as they had a season best of just 19.4% of their plays go for 0 or negative yards. So that staying ahead of the sticks allowed Kevin Patullo and the Eagles offense to start to utilize some tempo and just really get into a rhythm offensively with better play calling and better play sequencing. And again, the under-center run game was huge, and not saying it was perfect. I mean, they only averaged 3.9 yards per carry, but overall, the design and execution in the run game has been a lot better these past 2 weeks. And one underrated part of that has been the blocking of tight end / fullback Cam Latu.
This Cameron Latu played 19 snaps on Sunday. All of them were in the running game, including the shovel pass to Goddard for a touchdown. But this is what he does. He lifts Snowden right out of the hole right here. Here comes Bigsby. Then he doubles back and he picks up Devin White. It's like a holiday Macy's sale, 2-for-1 sale during a holiday season. He's an excellent blocker. And they're starting to use him a lot more. Like, he's going to be on the edge. He's going to be everything. The F-back. He'll be the fullback, tight end, in motion. Like, just remember the name Latu as we get ready to finish this season and the role that he plays.
Let's hope the Eagles continue to utilize Latu as a blocker more on these run plays, as opposed to Grant Calcaterra, who continues to be a liability when it comes to run blocking. Regardless of that, though, again, the under-center run game specifically has been huge, not just because it's generated some nice plays on the ground, but it also sets up the play-action game, which we know has been a big difference maker. And going under center more has benefited perhaps nobody more than Jalen Hurts. As you can see here in this tweet from Dan Orlovsky, just how much better Hurts' numbers have been on play-action passes from under center as opposed to shotgun. Not to mention that Sunday's game against the Raiders was the most efficient performance of Jalen Hurts' entire career and the most efficient game from any quarterback this entire season. So yeah, safe to say we need more plays under center moving forward. And also, in regards to Jalen Hurts, I find it so funny that after that Chargers game, there were actually real-life human beings calling for QB1 to be benched, but he responded with literally the most efficient game of his entire career. And also, according to Reuben Frank, Hurts did a lot more than just that, as this is now the second time this season where Hurts has completed more than 80% of his passes and threw 3 touchdowns and had no interceptions, making him the first quarterback in Eagles history to ever do that. And this was also the third game this season where Hurts had at least 80% completion and no picks, and no other quarterback in Eagles history has that many such performances, not just in a season, but in their entire career. Plus, Hurts is also the first Eagle ever with 2 games over a 150 passer rating in the same season, and only one of 3 guys to have more than one in his entire career. And Sunday was also the 4th time this year where Jalen Hurts has had 3 touchdowns and 0 picks, which ties Nick Foles in 2013 for the franchise record. And it also places him 3rd in that category this season. So, you can continue to doubt Jalen Hurts all that you want, but at this point, it's pretty clear that all that's going to do is make you look stupid. And I guess the only concern that you could realistically have about Jalen Hurts coming out of that game is whether or not he's injured. As of course, we saw him get shaken up at the end of the 3rd quarter when he got rolled up on this late slide and tackle from Devin White. And from there, he obviously played only one more play, which was the touchdown to A.J. Brown, before sitting for the rest of the game. But still, there was some concern there, but Nick Sirianni kind of quieted things down on WIP Tuesday morning.
The second to last play, when he had the ankle or knee or both, is he going to practice today?
You guys are speculating there a little bit. He came in and threw a dime the very next play for a touchdown, and then he came out because of the lead that we had. So we looked through everything. And we're walking through today just because it's a short week. Looking forward to a really good practice.
Yeah, I think we all kind of knew that Hurts came out because of the lead and not because of his injury, because he came out when all the rest of the starters came out. But still, the way Sirianni worded things there and was talking about it made it seem like he's not too concerned about Jalen's injury. And then what do you know? Late on Tuesday, Jalen Hurts had this to say about it.
Jalen, any lingering effects from that hit at the end of the 3rd quarter?
No, I'm fine.
And then, of course, the Eagles had a walkthrough on Tuesday, like Sirianni said, and Jalen Hurts wasn't even listed on the report, so it seems like he's completely fine. Now, the other thing that's eye-catching about this report is how many players that maybe weren't expected to be on the injury report that not only were on it, but that also missed practice. But, this is their 2nd short week in a row, so I feel like most of this is just precautionary, and again, it was an estimated report because it was only a walkthrough, so I expect a lot of them to be back at practice Wednesday. Switching over to another injury, though, obviously, we've all been waiting to see what's going to happen with Lane Johnson and whether or not he would be back at practice this week, as in case you missed it, Ian Rappaport said on Sunday that it was likely that Lane would return to practice this week and possibly make his return this Saturday versus Washington, or the following week against the Bills, and Lane himself also put out a tweet hinting that he would be back soon. Now, unfortunately, Tuesday's injury report showed that Lane would have been a DNP had the team had a full practice, so, definitely not the news that we were necessarily hoping for, but still, things could change later in the week, and, there's really no need to rush him back anyway. At the end of the day, the most important thing is to make sure that Lane Johnson is fully healthy whenever he does come back, because we know how important he is to this Eagles team and this Eagles offense, and in turn, how crucial he's going to be if the Eagles want to make another run in the playoffs. Heck, just listen to Joe Thomas on Up and Adams on Tuesday.
Because he's set to practice. He's been out since week 11. Philly has gone 1-3 since. Not a coincidence. Can you explain to me and to fans how important he is given that?
Well, he's critical. Obviously, we know what he's done throughout his career, protecting the edge, right? Which, if you can't protect your edges, you got no chance because your quarterback's got no space. Maybe he'll be able to step up a little bit, but he's constantly getting squeezed. And Lane has always been really, really good. You can see it there in the run game, opening up those huge lanes for Saquon Barkley. And what that does is it makes the defense afraid, right? Because they're afraid of getting beat with the huge home run, explosive run plays. right behind that big guy, Lane Johnson, doing the 360s right there. I love when offensive linemen do the spin when they spin thing. And he's just so important because he sets up their running game. He gives them time in the passing game to make explosive throws down the field, to find A.J. Brown, to find those weapons. And when he hasn't been in there, they've really been handicapped on offense. And I don't think they're good enough as a group or individually out there to be able to win without that offensive line, to be dominant in the run game, to set things up for the pass game.
Again, as much as I think Fred Johnson has actually held up pretty well, Lane Johnson's just a different animal, and there's no replacing him, and getting him back will give yet another boost to an Eagles offense that's already trending in the right direction. So ideally, they want him to be fully healthy for this playoff run, and it seems like he is moving in that direction. Also, staying on the topic of injuries, the Eagles got some not surprising, but also game-changing news recently, as ahead of their matchup with the Commanders, it was reported by Ian Rappaport on Monday, quote, "Sources, the Commanders have decided to shut down quarterback Jayden Daniels for the final 3 games, turning his focus to supporting Marcus Mariota. Daniels was reevaluated today and not yet cleared, with him expected to be medically ruled out versus the Eagles, then facing a short week versus the Cowboys on Christmas. The final decision was made today." So again, I said this not too long ago, but I was not expecting Daniels to play for the rest of the season, just with the Commanders out of the playoffs and, not wanting to rush him back from injury. And with the Eagles set to play Washington both this week and also in Week 18, that's obviously huge and makes their path to clinching the NFC East even easier, because all they need is one more win to do it, and without Daniels, the Commanders are obviously even less of a threat. And of course, Daniels' backup is another former Eagles quarterback in Marcus Mariota, and as much as I respect the guy, he's just not all that great. And we'll talk more about this later in the week, but I definitely expect the Eagles defense to shut him and the Commanders offense down. Speaking of the defense, I feel like I gotta highlight the fact that they're also coming on at the right time too, as even though they've had moments of dominance all season, they've really started to play their best ball since the bye week outside of that Bears game, and the pass rush has really started to take over, especially these past 2 weeks, as the Birds have had 11 sacks combined against the Raiders and Chargers, and then taking it back to the bye week, the Eagles have 3 of the top 10 edge rushers in the NFL in terms of pressure rate since Week 10, with those being Nolan Smith at 24%, Jalyx Hunt at 19.4%, and Jaelan Phillips at 17.6%. And Hunt specifically is actually the only player in the entire NFL to have 50 or more pressures in less than 350 pass rushing snaps, with him doing it in just 303. So his breakout season continues, while the defensive tackles also have been stepping up as well. Mind you, this is all without Jalen Carter the past couple weeks, who's set to return probably later in the season, maybe even in the playoffs. And that also directly coincides with the emergence, or re-emergence, I should say, of Brandon Graham, who has been balling out at the defensive tackle position. I mean, look at this. BG played just 7 snaps against the Raiders, but he had 2 sacks, becoming the oldest Eagle to ever record a sack in a game, and every single one of his snaps resulted in something positive. As those 7 plays went like this: sack, incomplete pass, sack, incomplete pass, interception for Zach Bond, and a sack for Nolan Smith. I mean, it's clear, BG still has a lot left in the tank, whether he's playing edge or defensive tackle, and this Eagles pass rush and defense is just taking over at the perfect time. So all this is obviously very exciting, and you guys know that I'm going to be continuing to give you Eagles coverage throughout this entire week and throughout the rest of this entire season. So if you don't want to miss anything, make sure you subscribe and you turn on notifications. Also, I do just want to ask you guys to keep me and my family in your prayers right now. I really would appreciate that. And also, make sure you hit the like button, because that helps me out a ton. Let's see if we can get to at least 500 likes today. And also hit the hype button, because that helps me out a ton as well. And leave a comment down below just regarding anything that I talked about in this video. And if you do want to watch another Eagles video, you can check this out right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.